Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show.
I'm ready to spike this one into the ground. Oh.
Hi, Andy.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm drinking some spiked punch over here.
No, you're not. Is it one of your kids' birthdays?
It's actually just water.
Oh.
Sorry to spoil the
Suddenly less cool. I'm drinking a Soda Stream. Oh, I love Soda Stream so much.
I know you do. You and your bubbly waters.
Oh, bubbly water. I'm so bored with regular water. I get so bored with it. It's just like tasteless and it's just flat. It's flat. You ever think about that with your water? It's flat. It's naturally flat. Flat is the thing we try to avoid in our beverages. But water just comes that way, and some reason we celebrate it? No. Thank you.
Bubble it up, baby.
Bubble it up with the soda stream. Unreal. Bubbly water.
Yeah. I like me some bubbly water.
Ah, it's so good.
I just don't have my special fancy little soda stream machine to bubble my own water.
You honestly don't have one? Like, is it something you think you would use if you had one?
I don't know. I've never put much thought into it.
Not nearly good enough, Andy. Not nearly good enough. Well, I'd like you to try it. I feel like you should try one, and then we'll see. We'll maybe go into some negotiations.
Okay.
How's your week? Have you seen anything since we last spoken a couple hours ago?
I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't.
It's been a busy week.
I'd love to say I have, but I have not.
I would love it if you would say that too. But it is. We are. Yeah. No. It's good. We are wrapping up our heist series. No, they're not. They were second. This is the penultimate heist film.
That's right. All right.
This week we're going to be talking about Denzel and Clive and Jody in Inside Man. And so we'll be talking about that in a few minutes on the next reel. So thank you so much for joining us and listening. I'm Pete Wright. That's Andy Nelson. And you can find us at thenextreel.com, facebook.com/thenextreel for some great links. And iTunes is where you subscribe to the show. If you're an iTunes user, you can also grab the RSS feed off our website so you can use your podcatcher of choice. I am not an iTunes user. Did I tell you that? I don't even for podcasts. I don't even mess with iTunes. So here we pitch iTunes every single week, and I don't even do it. I don't even eat my own crackers.
But we do like people to go eat the crackers at iTunes.
Yeah. You can do it on iTunes.
Leave us a review and a rating.
Well, this is the whole point. I was telling you. This is what I was going to tell. I use Downcast, and what I'm telling you is for people like me. If you're out there, if you're an Android user, you can also subscribe to the show for free. Just grab the RSS feed from our website at thenextreel.com, and you could be like me, or you could be like Andy and use whatever.
I use Downcast.
Neither one of us uses iTunes. I do
go to iTunes when I am reviewing and rating things.
All right. I was just trying to remind people that there's convenience involved.
There is.
I don't want to fight
about
it.
I am not arguing that with you. I am not arguing that with you.
Well played, sir. Well played. I didn't see that coming.
Oh, there it was. And there it was.
Let's do our trailers.
You first.
I'm actually very excited about this movie. I'm very excited about this movie. I can't believe I didn't even see this coming. Didn't even know it was a thing. This is the Wolf of Wall Street. What?
I think you're right. That is what it is.
Yeah. The Wolf of Wall Street.
That's sehr gut.
Martin Scorsese. I don't know. I can't pull it off for that much longer.
I'd love for you to just keep going with that.
Martin Scorsese's new film starring the one and only Leonardo DiCaprio as a New York stockbroker who refuses to cooperate in a large securities fraud case involving corruption on where? Guess? Wall Street. And this one is another one. He looks good in this movie, DiCaprio.
It looks like a wild, fun Scorsese ride.
I can't wait. You know what I'm most excited about in this film? Can you guess the actor that I'm most excited to see in this movie based on the trailer?
Yes.
Do it.
It's the Walking Dead guy, Bernthal.
No.
Oh, that was my guess.
No, I mean, I guess I'm excited to see him too because we have the same haircut. And I was sad to see him go on The Walking Dead. Spoiler. No, Matthew McConaughey.
Well, yeah. He has really had a good couple years. Like everything that he has been in has been really solid. And I still haven't seen Mud, and I so desperately want to go catch it.
You must see Mud. It's it's
know.
absolutely. And then you know what you should see. You should do after you see Mud. Do you subscribe to the Meet the Filmmaker podcast? iTunes, the Apple Store. Meet the
the podcast. No, I have no idea, but I can't wait for you to tell me what it is.
There is a podcast that is produced by Apple Inc., and it is called Meet the Filmmaker, and you should subscribe to it because every week they invite it to the Apple stores in New York. They invite these filmmakers to come in and meet with critics who host these conversations. And the conversation with Matthew McConaughey and what's his name, the writer-director, they both came in and joined for a conversation, and it was a great conversation. It was very interesting hearing Matthew McConaughey talk about that. What you just said, he's had a great couple of years, I think is so true, and he actually makes a comment about that, like the projects that he's taking on after he took a break to have a family, he hatched a family.
Oh, good for him.
And after taking some time off, he came back and started doing these like crazy interesting roles, like really much more interesting roles than before. There was Mud. What was the other one where he was the killer?
Well, there's Killer Joe, Paperboy, Magic Mike,
right.
Bernie. I mean, even Lincoln Lawyer really kind of took me by surprise. I thought that was much better than I had anticipated.
Absolutely. So I'm very interested in this. The other one I'm interested in seeing after my favorite baseball movie of all time is Jonah Hill. In this film, I think he looks really interestingly goofy in this movie, and in a very positive way. I'm very excited to see him. He's playing like a another analyst broker, and it looks great.
Yeah,
this looks like a good film.
It looks like very energetic Scorsese. It looks like he's kind of moving away from kind of the more just a genre type of films, and it just has that crazy Scorsese energy going through this, at least through the trailer it does. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
I think from watching the trailer, this is the movie I wanted out of Money Never Sleeps.
Yeah, probably. That was a disappointment.
Yeah, that was too bad.
Yes, indeed.
All right, your turn.
I am so excited to talk about my trailer tonight because I can't stop watching it. It just is going to be the craziest fun movie of 2014, and it is the Lego Movie. I never even knew that this was in the works, but the trailer just has me in stitches every time I watch it. It looks like it's so much fun. And I think the thing that draws me to it is that it's directed by the pair of filmmakers who were behind Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which I think was one of the funniest films that it came out back in 2009. It was one of my favorite films of the year because the sense of humor in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs fits so in line with my mentality. And I couldn't stop laughing at that movie. I still think it's just like a practically flawless comedy. I love that movie. Phil Lord and Chris Miller directed that, and they are back to do the Lego Movie in 2014, which already just from the trailer, I think just looks hilarious. I mean, the great thing about it is it takes Legos as the characters, real Legos, and because of that, it allows them to use every character that they've ever had, whether it's superheroes or basketball players or astronauts or mermaids and pirates, like every possible Lego character you can throw into a movie. And so you've got this little character, Emmett, who's the protagonist of the film, dealing with this wizard character played by Morgan Freeman. And then there's Batman in there who only dresses in black, except sometimes in very dark gray. It just is going to be so much fun, and I really can't wait to watch it.
Are you, do you celebrate the entire Lego canon? The entire Lego catalog? Have you seen the other movies and played the video games?
No, I don't play video games, and I have.
Well, don't say it like that, like it's dirty.
No,
please. Judgment.
I don't play video games. No, it's not like that. It's just that I don't play video games because I am an addict. I'm a video gameaholic.
I remember that about you.
And
what was that game that you got addicted to in California? That was that. It was that Onimusha. Was it Onimusha?
It was. I've never even heard of that game.
So there was a game that you went to the dark side on this game, and you just didn't come out for a long time.
Yeah, I don't know. I've done that with quite a few video games, and so I no longer play. I am, well, I guess I'm pushing about 15 years clean now. And
well, let me just tell you, I do play the Lego video games with I play them for my kids.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
They're out of town right now, so I'm just trying to play ahead so I at least know what's coming.
Right.
So I finished them twice.
I do play them, like when we go to friends' houses, I end up having to do like the Dance Revolution things with them.
Yeah, you have to.
Oh.
You end up having to really
I do
suffer through it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that's hard for you. I would just like to say that Lego, I absolutely, I mean, I know there are purists out there who get very frustrated by me saying this, but I love what Lego is doing with their properties. The Lego, particularly the Lego Batman series video games, and the second Lego Batman 2 DC Superheroes has all of those characters in it. And from what it looks like in the trailer, they're transitioning directly to the movie. So it's these are characters where all the voices seem to be the same, same actors, if not very, very close. I love Lego Star Wars. Their TV movie, Lego Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Out, was fantastic. They have done this year. They did Lego Batman the movie, DC Superheroes Unite, which I have not seen yet, but is available for rent on iTunes, and so I think the boy and I are going to be watching that very soon. And then The Adventures of Clutch Powers. It seems like they have been really working up to the Lego movie, and you can tell. I mean, it looks very, very clever and quite charming, and I'm right with you. I love what they're doing. They've got a lot of really great humor in it, and it's much like sort of the earlier Pixar stuff, I mean, it just feels like there's enough in it for adults that's clever. It'll be fun to take your kids to see this movie, and entertaining for both, I think.
I think I got it, but just in case, you say everything again, I wasn't listening. Oh, yes, line from the movie or trailer, yeah. Can't go wrong. I cannot wait for that to hit in 2014.
I know.
Very much. Going to be a lot of fun.
We're all children, all of us.
Deep down inside, and kind of on the outside still too.
Mostly on the outside.
That's right.
Okay. Nice. That's a good batch of trailers. I'm excited about that. All right.
A wide breadth of genre there. Scorsese, Legos.
All right. Let's move into this Inside Man.
Let's move inside the man.
Now, did you see the extended director's cut preferred edition of this one?
The super inside edition?
It was 4.5 hours long. Did you get through all of it?
That was about how long it took me to watch this movie.
Because Spike Lee was actually in it, in the director's edition.
Oh.
He had a major role that was totally cut from the theatrical. It really changes the way the film ends.
I'm going to have to go rent that one.
That'll be a tough find.
Yeah, it will be.
What do you think of this movie on watching it again?
This is a movie I've always really liked. I think it's a very clever conceit. I love the idea that Russell Gerwitz, the screenwriter, came up with. And really, this is, speaking to our show last week and you talking about how much you kind of preferred the caper sort of film where you're trying to figure out the heist and what is the puzzle that they're presenting to you and seeing if you can sort it out before you get to the end, rather than just a straight up heist film. This film definitely has that more. And I think it's a really fun twist that they come up with at the end of the film. I really enjoy it. That being said, for some reason, this last go around, it took me so long to get through the film. And I don't know if I was just really tired and I was just struggling, but I still really find it a great film, but it was a lot harder for me to get through. And I don't know if that's because I knew everything that was coming or what. But
this is one of those movies that, it's that category of caper film where, once you know the secret, once you know the gimmick, once you know the title tie-in, once you see all of the little things, it doesn't have as much staying power. It's very exciting to watch the first time for me. And I remember walking out of this movie thinking that was absolutely terrific. But this time, I'm with you. I had kind of a hard time a hard time getting through it, and I think I've isolated where I had the most trouble with it. I really, well, I don't know. You want to start getting into details? I risk spoiling it early on here. So this is a 2006 movie, Inside Man, directed by Spike Lee. Andy said, written by Russell Gerwitz. If you haven't seen it yet, you've had time.
But we'll try to hold out a little bit before we really spoil it.
All right. So Denzel plays the detective. He's he's a detective on administrative punishment or under investigation by Internal Affairs for some other thing that is, not related.
Yeah, it's just some random thing that seems to be there because it needs to come into play later.
Yeah, it's some
character.
Sort of embezzlement. There's a potential embezzlement issue.
Right.
And so he and his partner, Schwedel, Ejiofor,
Chiwetel, yeah.
Schwedel?
Ejiofor,
Oh,
yeah.
man,
Chiwetel.
I mess that up every time.
His nickname is Chewy. That's what he goes by. So just say Chewy and then say the rest of it. Chiwetel.
Chiwetel.
Yeah. There you go.
I learn something every week.
That's right. That's why I'm here.
So they're partners, these guys, and they are. There's this bank robbery, and they are assigned to the case. So that's where they fit in. And the bank robber is Clive Owen and his gang of thugs, and they are painters. And they go in as painters, and they are robbing the bank. And the president of the bank is Christopher Plummer. Love Christopher Plummer and everything.
Yep. Absolutely.
And he has a dark history. And so he hires Jodie Foster to come in and take control of the scene so that she can help him hide his dark history. Yes. And so we have all of these three elements, major elements at work trying to resolve this issue. And through the whole thing, we really know more than anything else that Clive Owen is smarter than everybody.
And he's just so cool.
He's really cool.
Yeah. Can't go wrong with Clive.
No, you really can't. So where is the movie weak for you? One of those elements for me is exceedingly weak.
I don't know. I don't know where it's weak for me. To me, it seems like some of the police work is kind of what bogs down for me. I find the stuff with Christopher Plummer as the bank owner and Jodie Foster as this, elite facilitator. I find that side of the story quite interesting. I get bogged down in some of the police procedural stuff, trying to, I enjoy the games that they're playing, the Clive Owen playing with the detectives, playing this language, playing this message in a foreign language. They have to translate it, and it was just a big ruse. All of that stuff for me, and then like the riddle that they do and everything, that to me is what kind of felt like it bogged the film down for me. It was like, okay, I just want to get to the story of getting in there and solving this crime. And I don't know. I mean, I guess that was it for me. It was just really kind of just the police stuff, the procedural. What about for you?
Absolutely opposite. Absolutely the opposite. And that was what was so disappointing, because the police stuff is what I wanted. That's what I was craving. I love the bit about the Albanian. I love that they worked so hard and picked a construction worker off the street. I love that he wasn't the final answer. They had to call his ex-wife. I love that whole bit. I thought that was fantastic. I love the bugging. I particularly loved that they bugged the pizzas and they got bugged back. So that they were, eavesdropping on each other, and yet it was the Clive Owen who got the upper hand in that case. I loved all of that. Every time it cut to Jodie Foster, it's like they put the air brakes on the movie. She was so terrible in this movie. Terrible, 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 terrible in this movie. Worse than Kevin Costner on his worst day. She was ridiculous in this film. This is the worst movie she has ever been in. It's terrible, terrible. Her performance was terrible. And she brought Christopher Plummer to a new low. I mean, he did, it's like a drowning man doing everything he can to keep his head above water every time he's on screen with her. When he came into the mobile command unit and did his thing, that little sequence shows how amazing of an actor he is. I thought the way he worked on screen when he was you could tell all of the competing emotions when he just wanted to sit down and be present so that he could be aware when he was going to be exposed. That's everything else he's on screen with Jodie Foster, and she just brings him to just rot and filth and nastiness. I was really like angered at what she did in this movie. I thought it was terrible.
Okay. So stepping back to what I said, I agree with you. Jodie Foster was a problem in this film. I love Jodie Foster. She's just one of my faves. We talked about her on Panic Room before.
Yes,
I
mine
think
too.
She's genius. There was something, and I don't put her in these slimy slums that you're putting her into. I didn't find her that appalling.
I fell in love with her in Stealing Home in 1988, and that was a crappy movie.
It really was. But I don't think she was as bad as you're saying, but I did have a problem with her. And when I watched her this time, and again, my viewing lasted about 4 hours because I kept falling asleep and going back, and it was a very long time. But
that's a sign that something's wrong, Andy. I'll bet you fell asleep every time she came on screen.
No, it was the police stuff. That was what really put me to sleep. But Jodie, every time I was on, and this is why I think I was awake watching Jodie Foster, because every time she was on, I'm like, what is she doing? What is this performance that she's giving here? I don't fully understand. It's almost like she's doing a pretend performance. What it felt like.
That's what it felt like.
There was something very strange about this kind of elite character that she's playing that I struggled to buy into. I really like the idea of the character. I think it worked really well, but somehow the way she played it, I was struggling to I couldn't get convinced.
Well, and I think that's exactly the point. And I would disagree with you again on that. I think that Jodie Foster is obviously she is a premier actress, right? I mean, she is supremely talented. And I think this is what happens when you put an actress, even of her caliber, otherwise, immensely talented, and put her in a role that is completely misunderstood. I do not get it. I don't get that role, and I don't think she got it either. And that's what it felt like to me. It was watching this person try to flesh out a role that doesn't quite exist yet. Like I didn't see it. I didn't see the secret super facilitator. I didn't get that relationship. I felt like that whole angle of the movie was like, the movie is driven. The engine of this film is by the fantastic caper that you really want to see flesh out. So the engine is this big old V8 drama engine, right? And it is surrounded by a Yugo of this other stupid storyline, and it just doesn't fit.
And see, that's where I disagree with you, because I think that other storyline for me is what I really am attached to when I watch this film. I am so engrossed when it comes down to those elements of the story and figuring that out. Now, that being said, I don't feel like by the time we get to the end, I feel like there's some confusion in the resolution of it. I'm not fully satisfied by it anymore, I don't think, as much as I used to be.
Okay.
Well, I'm still being vague here because we haven't really I guess we can spoil it now. Are we just going to spoil it from here forward?
Please, like we don't hang our hats on this every
I know, I know, we're pretty good at spoiling stuff. We get to the end of the film. We see Denzel has kind of pieced it all together. He's gone into the box. He's gotten the diamond ring, this Nazi war crime ring that Christopher Plummer is keeping, and now he's like, well, I've got to solve this crime. And so now he's like, instead of listening to everyone who's basically telling him, just drop it, don't worry about it, no crime was committed, yada, 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 he's going to go after this ring and he's going to solve this crime. And Jodie Foster, and this is what I don't understand with her character, as much as I like this Nazi side of the story, all of a sudden, because she was always like, Christopher Plummer is like, well, how can you be so good? And she's like, the guy who referred you to me, he's the whatever she says, but something like, the reason that he referred you to me is because I do what I say I'm going to do. I'm this great facilitator and I get things done. That's basically what she says, right? And so here he is trusting his friend and trusting her. He's hiring her to do this job. And she says, I'll do it. I'll protect you and all this stuff. And then we get to the end, and it's almost like now she says,
totally failed.
Yeah, she does. Because she's like, don't do it. Don't put it out there and all this stuff. And then when she's having dinner with the mayor and he comes in and he says, this is the War Crimes Commission, call them, blah, blah, blah. She's just kind of smiling and he's like, oh, she wants closure. And I'm like, well, I guess that's where I struggled with that part of the story, is because I'm like, she's not a very good worker. She got all this money from him and she's totally fine with screwing him over now.
Because that's what so this is the little thought experiment, right? And the movie's made. We can't go back and ask them nicely to fix it, but we can play a little thought experiment. If you were to take Jodie Foster, the fixer, completely out of the film, right? And everything else stays the same. And for all those scenes where Christopher Plummer is sweating bullets, he's actually sweating bullets with some unnamed red shirt administrator, and we just get to see him struggle internally with this. Do we need Jodie Foster at all?
Yeah,
I think the answer is no, we don't. She fails at her job. The war crimes thing gets called anyway, and the guy gets away with the diamonds after hiding in the wall for a week. The movie still works. She is a pointless character. I think it's just superfluous, drama, and to have her name on the poster, and it was dumb.
Okay, I think you've convinced me, but see, this is why I'm defending it, because I like that part of the story better than I like the cop part of the story. Like the cop stuff, I just feel Roger Ebert in his review, I think he said it well. He said, Spike Lee's Inside Man has a detective tell a bank robber, you saw Dog Day Afternoon, you're stalling. The problem is, we've seen Dog Day Afternoon, and Lee is stalling. Here is a thriller that's curiously reluctant to get to the payoff. And that's what I feel about the film. Like a lot of these bits and pieces of the police procedural, I just feel like, oh, it's just this part, we got to go do this and we got to do that. It just feels like, come on, let's get to the actual story of this crime that these guys are committing and stop with this back and forth. That's the stuff that drove me nuts. There is a big problem with the character of Jodie Foster. I definitely agree. But that being said, I still find that Nazi war crimes and the motivation behind the criminals act the most fascinating part of the story. And that's what really draws me to it.
Okay. I think the challenge that Lee had in this film, in that regard specifically, is that, this is one of those movies where you can't spend too much time demonstrating what the criminals are doing.
Yeah.
They give us these little breadcrumbs of what they're doing, but we can't quite piece it together until the end. And that's a challenge, because that means he has to spend more time on the police, the procedural stuff. And, for me, I did not see that weakness, but I absolutely see your point that, if that police stuff is bogging down for you, there's not a whole lot you can do about it, but really fall in love with the Nazis. You know what I mean?
Right.
The Nazi angle.
Right.
So I get that. I absolutely see that. But I still think that side of the film, that sort of the Plummer's kind of dramatic motivation of the film would hold, without this lame duck Jodie Foster.
I think you're right. As we talk about it, I feel like you're right. If we removed her, I feel it probably would be an even more solid film.
Yeah, good. Hey, I feel like I hardly ever convince you of anything. That's fantastic. Fantastic. What a week. I'm wrapping this one up high. Okay, so what else works for in this film for you?
I think that I really do enjoy the casting. Denzel Washington as Detective Frazier is great in the role. I really enjoy him, and Clive Owen paired together. I feel those two play against each other really well, and the scenes where they actually have the face-to-face confrontations, I really enjoy watching. Even with Clive Owen masked for the majority of the film, I think he just brings so much power to that role, and you really need somebody who can bring that power to the role when they're working opposite Denzel Washington. I think those two just work so well together. I have a great time watching the two of them on screen. And this is a film, Spike Lee is a director who really, I think I like few of his films. But I enjoy the fact that he's always pushing himself and pushing cinema and trying things with his films, even if I don't like a lot of his films. This is a film that for me was strangely, it seemed out of character for him. And it really felt like, and I don't know if this is true or not, but it felt like Hollywood was saying, hey, Spike, we want to keep you making films, but we need you to do something, give us something so that we can keep your other movies going. And so he worked with Brian Grazer. He came in to direct this film.
I think that's a really good point. This was something I did not know, that actually Ron Howard was on deck to direct this film and stepped out to do Cinderella Man, and then Spike Lee got the role. So it's not like a Spike Lee joint per se.
Right. Exactly.
And that I wonder is that's an interesting thing. This has I think largely nothing in common with She's Gotta Have It. Or Do the Right Thing.
This has nothing in common with anything.
So
I think, but strangely, not to jump ahead to the numbers, but this film is the film that, of all of his films, has made more money than any other film that he's done. Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know what that says, but maybe he needs to kind of do what some of these other directors do, where they, I do one for them and then I do one for me, and do one for them and do one for me, and just kind of do that alternating back and forth so that you get that working relationship going. I feel like Spike Lee is always like, I'm going to do one for me, and then I'm going to do another one for me, and then I'm going to do another one for me, and then I'm going to do this one for me.
Yeah.
And he struggles making films that I think are that great for the most part.
Yeah, he's had some. And he tends to get tied up by opening his mouth in public, and
he does tend to be a little outspoken. Yes, he does. And, I'm not saying he doesn't have some great films. He's got some great films.
He does. I'm just going through the list of films, and there are so many of them that I really have a great affinity for. But none of them would I be able to watch in a row and predict Inside Man. I just would never be able to link that to Spike Lee.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's probably sad for him.
It's. I think it's great for him. I think this film is a great testament to his cinema power, that he knows how to tell a great story.
Certainly his flexibility.
Yeah, and given the right people to work with, I think he can make films that will make just tons of money.
Here's I really love the architecture of this film, and particularly one element, the way they intercut the real time with the interrogation.
Mm-hmm.
I find that absolutely elegant in terms of how this story plays out, because there is this interesting sort of, I don't know, what do you call the toning? It's like a bleach bypass or kind of a burn of the film, right? I mean, it's kind of
I'm sure there was some in-camera adjustments to how they were like overlighting to making a much stronger contrast and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, the look that he achieved with all of that interrogation stuff was drastically different and very much set apart from the real-time story of the actual bank robbery.
And that starts pretty early in the film. So you're watching the film, you're watching the story unfold, you're watching the robbery in progress, and then it does this like kind of smash cut into the first interrogation, and we see Chewie and Denzel trying to talk to people that we've already seen as hostages. We know they're hostages. Why are they being interrogated? And this happens repeatedly throughout the course of the first and second acts, as we realize that in fact part of the robbers' plan was to dress all of the hostages like them, so that when they walk out the front door, they can't tell who is a hostage and who is not. And that plan is made even more brilliant by the fact that they hold each other as hostage, so that all of the hostages see all of the robbers at some point or another with their masks off
as
hostages.
Right.
So they all get away. It is really elegant. And the way Lee works these two parallel stories, or parallel times, or not parallel times, these sequential sequences in parallel, I think it is so compelling to me. That's a piece that I am just riveted every time it comes back to the interrogation, and I love the dynamic that the cops have with the hostages. It's not good cop bad cop. It's like good cop kind of schizophrenic cop. They play. There's such a sense of frivolity in what they're doing, like a frustrated frivolity that I think is unique to this sequence.
In a way where it feels like the cops are playing it that way, as if to kind of throw these guys off, trying to just get someone to slip up.
Right.
And I really enjoyed that. It came across that way. A lot of that was actually improvised by the actors, and they just kind of like throwing stuff back and forth. And I think it comes across very naturally, like the bit about the guy with his hearing aids and all that sort of stuff. And I just love how all of that plays out. It just comes across so naturally and fun, but you can sense that, like you were saying, that frivolity, but that frustrated frivolity with some, sense of purpose to it. I really enjoy all of those, and the look of it works really well too.
It really does, and that pairs for me so well. It's like if you take everything else out of the film, but just look at their relationship and the way Denzel and Chewie play with each other. Mm-hmm. It starts with them getting the call, and there's that sequence where they're putting on their jackets and they're walking down the hall and they're walking down the street, and I love that bit. It's like, look, there are genuine man friends going to the big show. It's just, it's such a great view of these two cops putting their game faces on.
Yeah.
And I love seeing that little bit, like sort of the way they pull back the curtain on that. Who knows? If that's anything close to what real detectives would be saying to each other. But I loved the way these guys played it. It really brought me into their characters.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Who else?
We've been speaking about him already, or about the cinematography already, but Matthew Libatique, I think his cinematography has always been strong, and I'm always drawn to him, and I love seeing pictures of him because he looks crazy every time you see him with this just crazy, just tuft of black hair that sticks up, and sometimes he's got just the craziest goatees. He's one of those. He's really fun to see pictures of because he cracks me up when I see him.
He's another one of those guys, though, right? He sort of reminds me of he's like the antithesis of Spike Lee.
Yeah.
Because boy, has he the projects he takes are pretty varied.
Yeah, he started, in the 90s, he started pretty early on some much smaller indie sorts of films. And I think what he really started taking off, at least when I first took notice of him, was when he started working with Darren Aronofsky with Pi. Mm-hmm. And I believe he's done every one of Darren's films though so far, and is including Noah, which I think they're still working on. To come out in 2014. But yeah, right. He has just done such a wide variety of films, and I think everything from those little indie sorts of films to just much bigger Inside Man, Iron Man 2, Cowboys and Aliens. He's really all over the map, and he's just done some really fun, fascinating films with his films. But from
like Josie and the Pussycats to Everything is Illuminated to The Fountain.
Yeah,
right. I'm glad you brought up the Iron Man films. He didn't do Iron Man 3, but Iron Man 1 and 2, which I thought were really terrific.
Yeah,
cinematographically.
Indeed. And then he started. It looks like, I believe he started working with Spike Lee a little before Inside Man. I think it was with She Hate Me in 2004, and then Inside Man, and he's gone on to do Miracle at St. Anna, and I think that might be all that he's done with Spike since then. That was 2008, but definitely a great cinematographer. He has a great look in this film. I love the feel of it throughout the film. I love the camera work. I love the emotion, and that's definitely kind of a Spike signature. A lot of moving camera, a lot of crane shots.
I was going to just say there are so many crane shots over the police and over the crowd, and they're all right at the same kind of height.
Well, and
that's sort of the Spike Lee height.
And I love the up and down crane shots where you're starting, like when Jody when Jodie's character goes into the bank, and we start way up high overhead, looking directly down at her laying on the floor as they frisk her, and then she stands up and comes in, and the crane comes down all the way to them and everything. And just like all those crane moves, I think, are so smooth. Sexy crane moves, gotta love them.
Well, and that sequence, that may be the most sort of utilitarian purpose of Jodie in this film is her getting frisked like that with her arms out to the side on the marble kind of parquet floor, lit from the side in that sort of half dome. It is just such a religious experience. You know, the symbolism is weighty.
It is a bit weighty there.
Uh-huh.
But you know, a lot of Steadicam work throughout the film. And then the other great thing that I always love seeing in Spike Lee films is the interesting dolly moves that he has. And not just he'll do regular dolly moves. He will do the Hitchcock Vertigo shots where, you know, dolly in, zoom out at the same time. He'll do a lot of those. There's a great shot of Christopher Plummer sitting at his desk when they're talking about him, where they have that, and you just see the room expanding around him, which is fantastic. But then he also has this really interesting technique that I feel like he must have developed. I'm not sure if anyone else has done it before him. I could be wrong. But it's the dolly move where the actor is on the dolly with the dolly.
Crazy.
As the camera is moving, and it almost separates them from their world. And the film starts off with that shot when you see Clive Owen sitting there talking directly to the camera. He's sitting on the dolly, and the dolly moves all the way up to this wall, and you see this wall kind of come out of the darkness and all of a sudden be right behind him. It's a great way of putting you into the story. And then one of my favorite shots of the film is after I believe it's right after the hostage gets shot, and Denzel comes running out of the police van. And it's got that dolly shot of him just as he's standing on the dolly. It's like he's floating in this like mental blur down the street toward the bank. And it's just a magical shot. And it's one of those techniques that Spike Lee uses in film sometimes that I just feel is just, it kind of pulls you out in a way, but there's some strange emotion that it brings to the character in that moment. And I love at that particular moment how it really puts this haze around Denzel's character as he's trying to sort everything out that's just happened.
Absolutely. I think that's really strong. And I love the wave of cops that seem like they're trying to keep up, but can't, that sort of fall in behind him in that particular scene.
Yeah.
Very strong.
Yeah, definitely.
We talked about it. It was written by Russell Gurwitz. And I think for me, I'm torn on this. I'm just going to say it, and I'll see if I believe it when I'm finished.
Okay.
I think Dalton's opening monologue, for me, beats the opening monologue of Strange Days, or the trailer of Strange Days.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a heavy thing to say.
Now, I don't know if I'll tell you why there's wiggle room on that. Because for me, Strange Days ultimately failed horribly to deliver on, you know, many of the promises of the intensity of his, of his monologue there. I think I'm not entirely sure that the promise that Dalton delivers in his opening sequence, right, his opening monologue, pays off enough. I just know that it pays off better than Strange Days did.
Yeah.
You know, I almost wonder if this was Gurwitz saying something, you know, really starting with a bang, but not quite able to deliver through some combination of factors the level of intensity that is promised by that speech. But it's great. My name is Dalton Russell. Pay strict attention to what I say because I choose my words carefully and I never repeat myself. You know, and then he goes into his little speech. I find that the whole execution of that, the straight on with his face, the way that dolly shot works, the way the wall comes in behind him, I find that so powerful in this film. It totally sets up what I want out of this particular heist film.
I completely agree, and I have one problem with it. You know what that is?
What?
That he says, and I never repeat myself. And then at the end of the film, he repeats it. It's like he says it all again. It's like you're repeating yourself. You told us you don't repeat yourself. Oh, I'm just like, well, why is he repeating it? He's even saying I never repeat myself. He's repeating that.
You see what I mean? Actually, I think that is my problem with it. That he does, and the number of times he says, "I'm going to walk out that front door," like he's repeated himself not only once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. He says that.
That's right.
So he actually does repeat himself. He doesn't make good on his own intensity.
That's right.
So anyway,
but this was Russell's first script, and I'm not sure how it came to.
You got to admit, pretty good script.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic script. I don't know how it came to Imagine, but it did. They bought it, like you said earlier, for Ron Howard to direct.
Okay, I just had a funny thought.
Okay.
Would you like me to interrupt you to share what just jumped into my head? I'm sorry, it's a total interruption. You're being all serious.
You interrupt me.
Well, this is supposed to be a Ron Howard thing. Brian Grazer produced it. It's an Imagine Entertainment film. And for those who are watching Arrested Development this season, the Netflix season, you notice that Ron Howard has a significant role in this film, and in that series. And I just can't help but juxtapose Ron Howard as the benevolent narrator for Inside Man in my head. Right?
That is pretty funny.
What Dalton didn't expect when he sealed himself inside the wall. I'm sorry. Okay. Now, you finish what you're thinking. Everybody else, go off, and please, somebody out there laugh at that, because to me, I can't stop. I have Ron Howard is my inner monologuist.
Wow.
Right now.
Well, we all need one.
Go. Your turn.
Mine is an old Albanian man.
So you don't actually understand what he said.
Yeah, it really is frustrating. It really is. So anyway, back to Russell. So Russell, this is his first script. I don't know how it got into Imagine's hands, but it did. It's, I think, a great first script. It really is
it's terrific.
Fun script, a great read. And after Ron Howard left the film to go do Cinderella Man, they did talked to a few other directors. It was a script that it was basically financed pending actors, and none of these directors that they were talking to were able to bring any actors on. And then Spike came along, talked to Brian Grazer, got Denzel, and there you go. They went off to make the film. Spike Lee did have Terry George, a friend of his, come in and do some uncredited rewrites on the film to actually strengthen some of the Nazi bits. And I don't know if Terry is the one to blame for Jodie Foster's character or not, but he is the one who strengthened some of that Nazi subplot of the story. And Terry George, interestingly, is the one who Spike Lee went to after the success of Inside Man. When they started talking about Inside Man 2, Terry George is the one who they went to who Spike went to write the script.
Do you know anything about why Inside Man 2 failed? I mean, luckily it failed. I think it have been good, but
I think it's smart that it failed. I tried finding some stories. All I could find was that it did fail. They had changed the idea a few times. Terry George did have a finished script, and they had been shopping around trying to get the money. And Spike, from what I read, it sounded like Spike said, "You know what? This is a business where you need a lot of money to make these things, and unfortunately, we can't get the money to get it made." So that's all I found.
Well, that was lucky.
It's craziness of sequels. Like I don't know. It drives me nuts that people feel they have to have a sequel just because something was successful.
Right.
This is a perfect single shot. You don't need anything else with it.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
I don't have any other tidbits. I feel like I already got completely riled up on this film. On my Jodie Foster, I'm spent.
Spent. You burned yourself out on
I did.
Too funny. This was an interesting film, I felt, as far as critically. It generally received positive critical review, but there's a lot of people. It did seem kind of like The Town in that respect, where some people felt this was actually a really interesting genre film for Spike Lee to turn out. Really, it still has some of his problems. I always have a problem with some of this, the common problems Spike Lee has. I generally have a problem with the female characters in his films. I always find them to be underwritten. The biggest problem I had, aside from now Jodie Foster's character, but was Denzel Washington's wife in this film. I mean, just it's like a character waste of an interesting character. It's just this, sexy girl that he calls periodically throughout the film, and it ties into this, this struggle, this internal debate he's having with getting married. And I do like the little bit where he now has the ring, the diamond to get the ring at the end. I kind of like that little bit.
Yeah, on that point though, he, one of the reasons I like that bit is that he is, it shows that even though he was ultimately exonerated from the, embezzlement, I think we are led to believe he's likely going to keep the diamond.
Well, I completely believe he's going to keep the diamond, and it's going to end up now on his soon-to-be fiance's finger. I completely believe that that's kind of the direction that they intended us to take with that.
Right.
But I still think that his girlfriend is just cliche, bland, uninteresting, and it bothers me so much that I don't know. I guess I typically find this problem in Spike Lee's films, that I just find his female characters to be underwritten. I mean, if you look at the women in this film, we've got Frasier's girlfriend, who's just this kind of forgotten cliche on the side. We've got Jodie Foster, who's interesting, but again, there's obviously some problems with her. And then the other ones, it's just like it really boils down to cup size is kind of what it boils down to with the other two women in the film. And I just find that, something that just comes up in his films that I just always end up feeling like he just doesn't know how to handle female characters or something.
I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much sort of templated, not terribly sophisticated. Some critics said that there was an issue with dealing with, Spike Lee kind of inserting a bit of a heavy-handed approach toward race and race relations in this film. Did you find it heavy-handed, this whole approach toward race?
I didn't
race
find
relations.
I didn't find it heavy-handed. It's definitely something I noticed, and it's one of those things that in what otherwise would seem to be a Ron Howard genre film,
right?
It does seem like, those are Spike Lee moments. Like those are the things that when he came on as director, he inserted the extra conversations that people are having about these different races, or just the judgments people come to regarding race, like Willem Dafoe's character, whom I don't think we've even mentioned Willem Dafoe's in this movie, but his character, when he hears that Albanian voice over the air, he's like, "Oh, it's Russian. Oh, if this is the Russians, we better." He instantly jumps to the place in his head of the dangerous Russian criminals. And you see that throughout the film. Even the Sikh who works at the bank, when he comes out, just the way that people react to him, just because he has the
turban.
The turban.
I think I actually, on reflection, I really liked the fact that that they. This is going to sound really strange, and maybe not culturally aware. I liked the fact that the examples of like overt racism that were injected in this film were like not straight up black and white. I think this film, if anything, takes a caper heist film and injects some like more of a multicultural awareness of the fact that there is more of a complex kind of tapestry of racism that doesn't always look like racism. I like that. I'm with you. I don't think it was heavy-handed, but it was obvious. Yeah. I think those two things can exist in the same space. I'm not sure. I didn't find it offensive.
No.
That he was injecting some political message that got in the way of a story. I thought it was, if anything, it may have been obvious to the point of Sesame Street. but I was aware.
Well, and
I liked
coming a few years after September 11th, it's
Yeah.
one of those things for New York and for a very New York filmmaker. It does feel like he's just saying, this is still something we're all thinking about, talking about, dealing with. Race now more than ever seems more prevalent because of, now we're always kind of judging people by how they look at everything.
Yeah, we're afraid of everybody, and yet the main criminals in this film had masks on the entire time.
Right.
Yeah, I think I really I think I appreciated that element in the film.
I do too.
Yeah. And that's something that I'm not sure Ron Howard would have been able to bring.
I don't think so. I think he would have left that bit out. Maybe the Nazi bit would have been in his. I can see him.
Yeah, I can see him doing
handling that bit of the story, but dealing with kind of the day-to-day, just minor bits of racism that come out in people's just the way people talk and think.
Right.
I don't know if that would have if Ron Howard would have nailed that at all.
How do you think this stands up for Terence Blanchard and the score?
I like it. I'm never amazingly blown away by Terence Blanchard's scores, but I do still think it works. It works for the film. So far for our 3 heist films, I think in every case it's always been very effective scores that work for the film, none of which I am that interested in going out and listening to time and time again. Harry Gregson Williams and David Buckley did the music in The Town. I don't think we mentioned that last week. It's effective for the film, but it's not knock your socks off. Same thing with Terence Blanchard. He does have some really nice themes, and he does change it up between the trumpets and the solo piano, bits of some interesting stuff throughout. But honestly, the music I like the most in this is the Chaya Chaya song that opens the film from the Bollywood film Dil Se. And so it's funny that of all the music that I remember the most from this film, it's that.
That is an earworm if I've ever heard it. It is really tough to get that one out of your head. It opens and closes the film, and it's fantastic. It sets such a wonderfully kind of international presence to the film, like the setup. Just watching the other thing about those opening credits, I think that really work is just the cinematography of the credits. As we, what we see is this sort of montage of street life, with this injection of building the team as the van is going around and picking up all of the robbers dressed in their paint stuff. But the way that music, on top of this montage of the city waking up, I think is a really great entree into this story.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is.
Terence Blanchard's a funny musician. I think where the score works really well are during the sequences when he lets himself kind of fall to the roots of the genre and really just nail those trumpets, man. That's like your bailiwick. That's what you do. You are a jazz horn player. You should play that horn. And when we get the more sort of noirish themes, particularly toward the climax of the film, I think it really works. Ultimately, it's I think it's, like you said, it's utilitarian, it's functional, but it really stands out for me in those sequences where he gets out of the more urban and into the noir and jazz.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree.
See, I wasn't done.
You did good.
Thanks, man. Should we talk numbers?
Let's talk numbers. So Inside,
did well, huh?
It did pretty well for itself. This, like I said earlier, this film made more money than any other Spike Lee film so far. It actually cost more than any other of his films. It cost $45 million, and it had a print and advertising budget of $32 million, so total $77 million. And it made domestically $88.5 million. Internationally, $96 million, for a total of about $184.5 million. So it did really well for itself. Profit per minute, it's a 128-minute film. It made almost $840,000 per finished minute. So it's almost in our top 20, but not quite.
Wow.
Believe it or not, the film right before it is Alien 3. which made more money per
Wait,
finished minute.
is that in the top 20?
It is. It's number 20.
That's number 20. This is 21.
Yeah. It is number 21. When Harry Met Sally is number 22. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's smart.
Well, it's Alien.
I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start setting my
Alien.
rate though better because I should be when I'm doing my next corporate film that is I'm gonna price around that mark. 750 to 800 per finished minute.
There you go.
I need to readjust my rates completely. This is ridiculous. What were you gonna say? Alien something?
It's an alien film.
Yeah,
aliens.
Yeah,
People like watching those big monsters.
Yeah. All right. That feels about right. How about we flick chart this thing?
Yeah.
And while you're doing that, we should head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel and you can see our meteoric rise toward our top 100. And we're very, very close.
We're getting there.
Join us. You should friend us over at that Flickchart or just hang out and see the top 20. We don't, or the top 100. We don't.
Whatever
you want to do.
That's right.
I want to say while you're getting there,
I'm ready.
I saw Man of Steel again.
Oh, good for you.
I like it. I still like it. I just needed you to tell you. But I have another problem with it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
'Cause I have a lot. So.
Okay. So this is one I don't think we talked about last week when I was seeing it, when we were talking about it. So at the end of the film, when Jonathan Kent is fixing the truck, and we see Superman, or we see the young Clark Kent playing with his dog, and he has a red cape on and is modeling this superhero behavior after which superhero? He hasn't been invented yet. Who is he pretending to be?
That's right.
That should have
John Carter.
No red cape, my friend. Does not exist.
But John
so that was
pretty super.
That was kind of silly. I thought that was silly. All right. Flick chart. What are we doing?
Inside Man or Cloud Atlas?
Inside Man.
I would agree. Inside Man or Zero Dark 30?
Zero Dark 30.
Yep. Inside Man or The Curious Case of Benjamin Button? I'm going to go with Benjamin Button. Even though it's a long film,
yeah,
I don't have the problem now with it.
Yeah.
Oh, this strange Jodie Foster discovery that's going to make it harder to watch this film now. It's frustrating. Inside Man or Gattaca?
Oh, Gattaca.
I think I would do Inside Man.
Really?
I think so. Gattaca, well, it's funny that I say that because Gattaca is a film that, as much as I enjoy, I don't tend to want to watch it very often. And I feel like it might be the pacing in that one. And Inside Man, of course, now that I've just realized, it has its own pacing issues. So I don't know.
Inside Man has a giant cancer eating it from the inside out.
Oh, all right. We'll go Gattaca. Thank you for smoking. Speaking of cancer or Inside Man.
Thank you for smoking.
Yes.
Awesome film.
Moon or Inside Man?
Moon.
See, I would go with Inside Man. I think it's just because even with his problems, it's a fun film to watch.
Okay, I'll give you that. Yeah. Moon is a mood film.
It really is. And there we are, number 46. 46 out of 95.
All right. Well, if they ever do that 4.5-hour director's cut, we might have to re-rank it.
That's right. I can't wait. It's got to be more Jodie Foster.
What are we doing next week? We're wrapping up our Heist series.
That's
next
right.
week. What are we doing?
We're going to finish up with Stanley Kubrick's The Killing, which I just can't wait to talk about.
When's the last time you saw it?
A couple months ago.
A couple of months?
Yeah, when I picked it up on Blu-ray. So
you're wildly more prepared than I am. I haven't seen it in many moons.
Any moons.
Yeah. Speaking of horrible Native American accents, really not looking forward to Lone Ranger.
I am really not looking forward to Lone Ranger.
I'm gonna see it.
I'm not looking forward to it more than you are.
I'm gonna see it, but I am really, I struggle with using any idiom related to train wrecks because it's actually about giant train wrecks.
Because constant train
and horrible casting.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Although Johnny Depp is part Native American.
I know.
So there's that. But still, it's like, couldn't they cast someone else?
There are actors that are all Native American.
That's right.
I don't know if you knew that. And they're really, really good at being actors. They're fantastic. Oh no, let's get Johnny Depp. Johnny will do it.
Oh,
Gilbert Grape.
Oh.
All right. Hey, this was awesome. I'm going to talk to you again soon.
Sorry, I wasn't listening. Can you do it all again?
We wanted to take a moment to thank you for your continued support over the years. It's hard to believe that we have been having weekly, in-depth discussions about movies since 2011.
That's right, 12 years and counting. Producing this show is a labor of love for us, but it does require a lot of time and effort each week.
If you enjoy our podcast and would love to help keep it going, there are some easy ways you can show your support. One is by using our Originals page to shop for the original source material that movies we've discussed were based on.
That's right. In Season 1 alone, we covered 13 films adapted from books or plays, from Charlie Kaufman's adaptation to David Fincher adaptations like Fight Club.
In Season 2, we covered even more, like Powell and Pressburger's The Red Shoes and The African Queen from our series about legendary cinematographer Jack Cardiff.
We can't forget about the 4 Jason Bourne movies we talked about. Love those movies. Well, the original trilogy, at least.
For our Richard D. Zanuck series, we did Jaws, Rush, Big Fish, and more. And for our horror series, we talked about John Carpenter's The Thing, which was adapted from Who Goes There?
We did our first great car chase series with movies like Bullet, The French Connection, and Drive. And for the holidays, we did Preston Sturgis's Christmas in July.
We had a great John Huston series with adaptations like The Maltese Falcon and The Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
And for our baseball series, Moneyball with Brad Pitt. Have I told you lately how much I love that movie?
Yeah, I think you have. Plus, our Magician series and Heist film series had adaptations as well.
Tons of page-to-screen gems. Listeners can find the details and links to the original material at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book, play, or movie you buy through our links helps support the show, and it's no extra cost to you.
So dive in and get your next read today. thenextreel.com/originals has all the films adapted from other sources that not only we have covered, but all of the shows on the Next Reel family of podcasts. Check it out and get reading.
Support the show and build your reading list. It's a win-win. Head to thenextreel.com/originals.